Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Jared here with another video review from Fanboys Forever. Today I'm coming at you with a review of all 7 brand new Marvel Legends figures from the Thor Love and Thunder series. Of course, this is based on the brand new upcoming Thor 4, I guess. A lot of us are looking forward to the new film because of Taika Waititi coming back to direct. Let's get right into the packaging. I'll just use Thor here as just the example for what the front of the boxes look like. Of course, this may be one of the last times that we see a new series in Marvel Legends with regular plastic window packaging, as that is kind of going away now, or at least it is supposedly going away. Opens up a myriad of problems, but that's a discussion for another video. Of course, we can also see that this is a Build-A-Figure wave, and you can see all the different figures that come in this series, and you're going to be building Korg in his delightful new costume here. And since I hate to waste time discussing packaging, here is the spine art for every single figure. And in quick succession, here are the backs with all of the bios. Ravager Thor, Christian Bale's villainous Gorr the God Butcher, Natalie Portman's Jane Foster Mighty Thor, Thor himself in his nifty new armor, good old Star-Lord, King Valkyrie of New Asgard, and the lovable teenage Groot with a fantastic bio. Alright, let's look at the figures. Alright, and the first figure we'll be having a look at outside the packaging is our brand new Ravager Thor. Now, I've really been a big fan of this look from the trailers and things, and I have to say the figure really captures it very well from everything we can see. This is definitely his look that it appears he's rocking kind of earlier in the film, at least that's what it seems like from the trailers and things. And this does a really good job of recreating it. Marvel Legends has a long history with different attempts at Chris Hemsworth's likeness, and I actually think this is probably their very best one yet. It definitely has a very strong likeness to Hemsworth, and they've done a great job just overall of all their different application on the paint, and even the color of the hair is, I think, finally very, very correct. There's definitely kind of a dirty wash to it that they've improved that quite a bit since the old days when it used to hardly look anything like him. Moving on down, we have this really cool sleeveless vest, and they've done a good job of getting this black paint kind of appropriately shiny, and underneath he kind of has the sleeveless shirt going, and this whole vest is of course removable, so if you want to, you can easily remove that vest and it still looks completely legitimate. I'm not sure if this is a look that we're actually going to see in the movie, but it's worth noting that you can definitely do it, and it actually looks really good. It especially allows us to get a really good look at this tamper graphic that's on the front of the shirt here, and it really, really looks nice. I love how the detail, even as you extend, kind of goes pretty far like that. Of course, you can eventually break the image. I think it looks great. It also allows us to get a better look at the vest here, especially that they've done some silver paint application back here, and definitely gives him the look of the Ravagers. Moving on down, you can see that he has an excellently detailed belt buckle, and he's just wearing some kind of jean-like pants with very Asgardian boots, so it's kind of a funny combination, but visually it all comes together quite well. Stormbreaker is included here, and I'm not sure if it's just a direct reuse of one that we've seen earlier from maybe Infinity War or Endgame, but it looks really nice, and of course he looks great holding it. Since we are looking at the whole wave, I don't plan on boring everybody with a complete articulation breakdown of every single figure, unless there's something there that limits it or that makes it stand apart from our typical expectations for Marvel Legends. Just know that he's got double joints at the knees and the elbows and all the other articulation points that we all expect. Aside from Stormbreaker, his only other accessory is Korg's left arm. We've talked about all the good points of the figure, but let's talk about a couple of the negatives. One of the things was a rather large black splotch that was here on his chest. I believe it was probably from the factory, from the vest somehow or another. As I scraped it off, you can see that there was white underneath the flesh tone, so you can see that there was kind of a trade-off there, that I scraped away some of the flesh paint and still see a little bit of that black speck there, so that was kind of unfortunate. Also, if you didn't notice it earlier, that there's some weird black paint up here, so I'm not really sure exactly what happened in the factory per se, but definitely something went wrong with the black paint when my particular sample came through. It's not too big of a deal, but definitely something to be on the lookout for. Overall, this is a great addition. And next up, I thought it would be fun to switch things up pretty significantly with Teenage Groot. Looking very much like he did in the Avengers films, he very much personifies that same look, and they even have a very angsty head sculpt for him, so I think that's a great touch. Looking at that head sculpt a little more closely, I love all of the detail they've been able to squeeze into there. especially all the way around the figure's head. And especially up here, as you can see, there's little leaves and things growing from almost the stump-like top of his head there. So I think all of that looks really great. The actual body itself has all of the appropriate detailing for the tree bark and exactly what you might expect, even with his tree bark butt back there, which is always hilarious. He also comes with quite a few more accessories than I thought he would. One thing, he comes with his blaster rifle, which is very nicely detailed, even a little tiny bit of paint application right there. He does include some alternative hands. One of those hands is the trigger finger that allows you to hold the rifle. Another is this cool vine appendage here, and I like how they went to the trouble of actually painting kind of the green vines that go around the bark, and just of course the extended vine as well. So I'm really glad to see all of these cool customization options. For me, I think the only thing that's really missing is his portable Game Boy-like device that he had. I think that would have been a great addition in terms of accessories. And it is important that we talk about this guy's articulation because it is quite different than the standard scheme. The head is just on a ball joint up here, so it really can't do very much, but it can do enough for what you need. The shoulders are on a really good hinge, so you can almost get 90 right there. You can go all the way around, of course. There's a single joint and just a single hinge at the elbow. It can almost do 90, but not quite, maybe if you heat it up just a little bit. Of course, all of the hands have hinges on them, as you might expect. Actually, some pretty decent articulation right here at the abdomen, as you can rotate it either way, forward and back, so you can do quite a bit with it. Down here at the hips, you can get some almost complete split action. You can get a pretty good kick. You get a single joint rotation here at the knee, and it's fairly effective, almost allowing a 90 degrees. You can rotate, and there's a great hinge down here at the bottom of his stump-like feet, and you can rotate that all the way around, getting some of those really deep poses. Since the vine hands aren't exactly specific to either side, you can really get some epic stuff with one hand holding the blaster rifle and the other doing some kind of transformation, so it really does look cool. It appears the scale is handled really well with this guy, and I think he looks great beside of Thor. Although I don't really have that much to complain about with this guy, I do think the one thing that he's missing is a really solid dark brown or even black wash that would have brought out all of that great sculptural detail. I think that if any enterprising customizer wants to do that, you're instantly going to have a much better looking figure. So other than that, I really can't complain about all the cool details in this figure. He includes Korg's chest, and that's usually what they do. They'll take the smaller figure and add the big part with it. Next up, we have the always brilliant Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. I really do like Valkyrie's new costume, especially with the blue cape and all the silver accents. I like this little rune symbol here, whatever it is, that's been tamper-graphed onto the front. Also appreciated is the great detail in her Valkyrie sword there. And at the bottom, we even have some awesome highlights on the boots and kind of an ornamental dagger that does not come out as far as I can tell. From the back, there's all kinds of great detailing there as well. The facial likeness is quite impressive to the actress. I think this definitely looks great, and if any enterprising customizer wants to make a Creed custom, then this may very well be the head to use. I'm especially fond of all the braids and everything going here. I really like the blue highlights in there. And this is just some really impressive fine sculpting that actually looks like real hair. And it's really very incredible. I assure you, this is just rubbery plastic, but it's amazing what they've been able to do with that. So it's great to see the kinds of advancements that they're coming up with in sculpting. The articulation is extremely effective, and she features all the same points that the Ravager Thor did that we looked at earlier, so no surprises there. Once again, I feel the size difference is pretty well on point. They may be a little closer in height in reality, but still Hemsworth is a really big guy, so I don't feel like this is too far out of the realm of reality, especially since Thor is a Norse god after all. Aside from her sword, she does come with this giant scepter. The only other accessory she comes with is good old Korg's head right here. Hey there. She's a great figure. I don't really hardly have any complaints about her, but this is awesome, and Tessa Thompson is a great actress, so deserved a great figure. Next up, we have Chris Pratt here, coming back as Star-Lord, and I definitely have some mixed opinions about this particular figure. I definitely don't think it is the best that they've ever done with the Chris Pratt likeness. This is a little more cartoony. I do think it is recognizable as Pratt. but there's just something a little more exaggerated here. And I think maybe some of the hair coloring is a little off. I think that his hair is quite a bit darker in the actual film now that we've seen the trailer and everything. So I think that that's what's kind of putting it off just a little bit for me. They've done it better, but they've certainly done it worse in the past. So I'm kind of mixed on that. I think the actual detail of the costume is right on. It looks pretty accurate just from the trailer. I like all the gold accents and things, and especially all of the great detailing on the back of the trench coat. So that's all fantastic. Moving down on the pants, it's a little less interesting, and just some basic armor and things on the front. He does have his trusty blasters that we're used to seeing Star-Lord with at this point, and they have some nice paint applications and fit nicely in both hands. So he does have these interesting little areas to put the blaster, and at first it can be a little confusing, and you'll think, you know, how are these supposed to go on there? But you have to turn it like this, and this little area, that's like the trigger area, the small one, you put it like this, and then if you push it on, it actually clasps on there really tightly. So I'm actually pretty pleased with that. At first, I wasn't doing it correctly, and I thought, okay, this isn't working out very well, but actually it ended up working out just fine. I really do like the figure pretty well, but it is one of those odd cases where I think they leaned a little too much into the cartooniness, and he ends up looking a little sillier probably than they intended. It's also unfortunate that he doesn't include the Star-Lord helmet head. I think that would have been pretty great on their part, unless there's some kind of spoiler in the movie that prevented them from it, and I guess we'll see. But I highly doubt it. I bet his helmet is just the same as it ever was, and they're probably just cost-cutting. He does, however, include the right arm of Korg, so you will need him if you want to complete the Build-A-Figure. Overall, he's a fun figure, but I definitely think that he could have benefited from a little bit more paint application on the head and a little bit darker color on the hair. And here we have the villain of the piece, Gorr the God Butcher. Of course, Gorr is indeed based on a comic book villain in the Thor comics, but admittedly one that I know very little about. Not really kept up with a lot of the Thor comics over the years. So for me, this is kind of my introduction to him. I did see that there was quite a bit of a mixed reception to this figure, but more really just the design in general. I think a lot of Thor comic book fans were hoping that he would stay really true to his comic book roots visually, and overall it appears that he didn't. Now, I understand that level of disappointment because I've felt the same way many times before when a lot of my favorite characters were translated into film form. But at the same time, I am not entirely sympathetic to the complaint. For one thing, folks should understand that they actually got Christian Bale to play this character, so they're not going to completely obscure his face and make him look completely demonic or alien. So I'm not really getting how anybody could have possibly expected that. Also, the last time they tried that in a Thor movie was when they got the absolutely wonderful Christopher Eccleston to play Malekith in Thor the Dark World, and we all know how that turned out. It was an absolute mess, and I couldn't believe that they had wasted the talent of Christopher Eccleston on that role. So I'm glad to see that we're actually going to be able to see Christian Bale's face and see him emote, because why on earth would you get him if that was not a possibility? So I'm very much over those complaints. You can see that his sword is really cool looking and detailed. It almost has a charred, burnt appearance, which I'm sure will be a part of the film. And so I'm really liking the weapon. I'm also liking how naturalistic the sculpt is. Everything from the toes to his kind of rotten looking fingers with almost like a frostbite appearance there. All of the cool scarring here, even the texture on his scarf and cape here and the filth on the bottom of both. This is a better Christian Bale likeness than the Christian Bale Batman figures that I own in the same scale. So that's, I don't know what that says, but it speaks highly of the Marvel Legends sculpting team, or perhaps the folks who captured this as a digital asset, which is a part of the process as well. So I definitely won't begrudge them that. The articulation is actually exactly what you would expect. Nothing's really inhibited until you get down here. But they have offered us this kind of slit area, and you can see he's wearing some kind of funny pants here. And it does inhibit it quite a bit. You can see that this is about as far as a kick is going to go. You can split quite a bit, actually, because of those slits on the side. so you can have him doing some yoga. He definitely looks like a guru of some sort, but he does have double joints under there for the knees. So if you get creative, I'm sure you can do some really cool stuff in terms of posing. And I just can't wait to see what they do with him in the film. And I think if the performance works, and Christian Bale rarely disappoints, if that works, I think that people will very soon forget about any complaints about comic book accuracy. And if you look at Taika's work on Thor Ragnarok, then I think surely he's earned the right to do something a little experimental and a little further from the comics. Gorr comes with his sword, and he also comes with the leg of Korg. And here we have Natalie Portman as Jane Foster, who apparently inherits Mjolnir and the power of the mighty Thor in this film, just like we saw her do in the comics years ago. I've always really been fascinated by this idea, and I've never really been insulted or threatened by it, as I've seen some folks be on the internet. And if you are threatened or insulted by it, I mean, you certainly have your right to that opinion, but oh, come on, you'll be all right. I think this actually looks really great. As a matter of fact, this may be the very best likeness in the series. This is an excellent Natalie Portman likeness. Sure, it might be slightly cartoony, I suppose, in its own way, but this really is just right on Natalie Portman. And I think it was very important for them to nail that. And it's funny to see them do a little bit better job here than I've seen in some of her Star Wars Black Series appearances. But I have to say, I think this really does end up looking good. And from multiple angles, you can definitely tell it's Natalie Portman right away, even going as far as to get the little birthmark correct there. What's great is that she comes with the apparently reassembled Mjolnir here from all of its shattered pieces. Really glad to see this. I'm curious if in the film she will come to acquire this under the same circumstances as she does in the comics. Not really sure if they're going to go that direction or not. I assume that with more trailers, we'll probably get a better idea if they're indeed going to go in that direction. It's also worth noting that she is pretty well jacked here in her arms, and that's awesome and actually accurate to the film. Natalie Portman got in terrific shape to play this character and to do it justice, so good for her. Same with the thighs here, all toned up. All sorts of nice little paint details have been added all throughout the abdomen. I really like the fade that they did on the hair, where it's a little darker up here and a little lighter down here. So there's just so much that's been done to make this figure look good that I'm not really sure how you could be upset with it. This is really, really nice, and yeah, I have no complaints. What is really cool is that, yes, you can actually pop the head right off, and you have the helmeted head, giving you an even more comic book accurate Jane Foster Mighty Thor. And I really do like the design of the helmet. It really does look good from all angles, and it does retain that strong Natalie Portman likeness even with the helmet on. Of course, with that big reveal shot that we saw in the last trailer, it's great to be able to recreate that with this figure. Overall, how can you go wrong with this one? This is an incredibly strong release, and definitely one that no Marvel Legends fan or MCU fan should be without. And last out of the standard figures, but certainly not least, is our brand new Thor in his full gold regalia of armor here. And it's great to see Thor wearing something just so outrageous and crazy and Kirby-esque. It really is awesome looking. I'm a big fan of the mask and the helmet here. Just as crazy as you can go, I say go for it. Just see what happens. And I definitely think that they're pushing the boundaries of that crazy comic book escapism. Really nice to see all of the intricate detailing on the armor. As you can see, we've got all of those cool little bits that you expect from those MCU costumes. Even the pants are super detailed with all sorts of different patterns. The boots are especially impressive. For some reason, I just love staring at these things. I guess it's the complement of the royal blue and the gold all together. Up here on the arms, you can see that this isn't the first time Thor has rocked this look, but it looks especially good here in contrast with all of that great blue. And then you have the helmet, which I know will be the most controversial aspect of this new design. It's totally understandable that this would be the thing that would probably take people by surprise the most and kind of throw them off, especially because Thor is masked here. But it's a really cool evolution visually for the character. Especially because we've seen this kind of look represented in the comics before with different characters, and so it's cool to see it brought into live action. What's nice is that you can still see the Chris Hemsworth likeness underneath, which is very cool. All of the great hair detail and paint still comes right out. And you can even see that they've done like some blue highlights and kind of the wing parts of the mask. And it's just great looking. The only funny thing that I think happens that is sort of accidental is even though the eyes aren't crossed at all, because this is so thick in the middle, it has the unfortunate effect of kind of making him look a little cross-eyed sometimes when you're looking at it straight on. But it really isn't that bad, and that's just something that happens every now and then with the way that the light hits it. This is just kind of a fever dream of comic book colors and just cool art direction, so how could I not be excited about this particular one? Now, of course, they do the thing where they don't include anything but Stormbreaker and an alternate hand, and it's just a fist here for this hand that holds Stormbreaker. Of course, they do this because this is the main character figure or whatever, and so they don't give you a Build-A-Figure part. I think that they did use the extra budget, though, on this particular figure to do all of the crazy paint hits, which, you know, each one of those costs a certain amount of money and adds to the cost of the figure. And I think this is a marvelous achievement in terms of sculpt, in terms of paint, and is incredibly eye-catching. And of course, it's incredibly fun to see Thor, the Odin's son, and the mighty Thor side by side, ready for battle, as we will undoubtedly see at the end of the film. So here's something I wondered about with Thor's new armor. Could you switch out the Ravager head onto this? And the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that this is the intention. Yes, the head looks maybe a slight bit small on this body, but I really do think that it's pretty nice. And I think it works out really well. And of course, that begs the question, can you go the other way around? Of course you can, and it looks hilarious. Definitely a big suggestion for this guy if you like Thor's new look. All right, time to assemble our pal Korg here. And let's go ahead and put the arm in, and the other arm, and the legs, and the other leg, and finally the head. Korg's scepter. Throughout his appearances in the MCU, Korg has quickly turned into a massive fan favorite, as he is hilariously portrayed by Taika Waititi himself using mocap. Just this hilarious Kiwi gentleman here is just so funny, and I think everybody loves to see this guy. I really do like his new look in the film. I love the giant goat belt buckle. I love the big scepter. I like all the fur and everything. And I really do think this captures his likeness from what we've seen of him in the movie. I'll be curious if he's still addicted to online gaming or what he's up to now in New Asgard or wherever he turns up in the movie. He's really big and very sizable, and definitely has a really, really great heft to him. What is interesting is once you assemble this guy, you're not going to be able to get the legs to go like straight down. They almost splay out kind of on their own like that. But it works well. As you can see, there's no problem with him standing. I suppose it is intentional and by design. It gives him kind of a more balance to his weight there. What is less successful is some of the patterns on the pants not quite matching up when you get them assembled. This one matches just fine because I can turn it that way and it all looks good. This one over here appears to miss just a little bit of red paint, and that kind of creates a little bit of inconsistency when you have the sculpt lined up like this. So just that little bit can kind of throw it off slightly, but it's not too bad, and you can see where this part should have been red to have matched up. But you can definitely tell what the intention was, and it might be something that they want to look into correcting with future runs. Other than that, there's some terrific wash work up here on the kind of fur collar that he has. I do feel like he could have benefited from a little bit more wash and a little bit more paint work on the actual rock itself, kind of like what I was saying about Groot. However, I do like that they got all the little silver bolts on the belt and the gauntlets and even the gold little armor plates. Loving the giant gold goat belt buckle. The scepter definitely could have been prettied up a little bit more. It looks kind of toyish, really. I think it's because of this flat gray up here. But I definitely think the likeness for the character is there, and he's going to be probably so hilarious in the movie that a lot of people are going to be ending up hunting down this Build-A-Figure after they see it. So grab him while you can, because this thing is a real beauty. So how big is he? Well, with Ravager Thor here, you can see that Thor, of course, is huge, but Korg is still bigger. Of course, though, you know, nothing is comparing to that suitor. You know, what does? I definitely feel like if you love Korg as much as I do, then this guy is of course worth assembling. He's big, he's super detailed, and I think he's going to be fun for adult collectors or kids for that matter because, hey, who doesn't love Korg? The real question is, are these figures worth it and should you buy the whole wave? In my opinion, I do think that most of them are worth it. Now, it's also important to note that the price on these have creeped up to about the $25 price point. Of course, we do know that lots of things are going up in price right now. It's not just figures, but it's really going to be up to you if you feel that this new hike in price is really worth it or not. For me, I do think that these particular figures are overall worth it, and I do feel like Marvel Legends, when it comes to the MCU figures, are definitely hitting more than they're missing lately, even on some of the least popular waves, like the Eternals. These guys are just a lot of fun, and I definitely suggest that you complete the wave, especially to get the awesome Korg Build-A-Figure. If I had to rank the wave, it would go like this. Of course, leaving out Korg since he can't be purchased individually. At number 7 is Star-Lord. Star-Lord here just isn't quite as strong as the others, and even though I harp on him, I do feel like it's there in the sculpt, but the paint just doesn't quite bring out that likeness. At number 6, I don't mean to pick on the Guardians of the Galaxy, but Teenage Groot is something that we've seen before. And no matter how cool some of the alternate accessories and interchangeable hands are, it just feels a little bit like old news. Now, that's no fault of the figure itself, but since he's been around, it just kind of feels like a retread in many ways. At number 5, although I think it is a really good figure, I think the Valkyrie figure feels, fairly familiar and doesn't bring as much new to the table as maybe I would like, but it's still an incredibly effective part of this new wave. At spot number 4, I would definitely put Gorr the God Butcher. I know that this figure has upset some folks who are really hoping that he would be more accurate to his comic book counterpart. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. He has an excellent shelf presence, and the sculpt is so right on, and the likeness is just perfect looking. We don't even know how this character will necessarily look in the movie. I'm just going by the art, but I just already am connecting with the design of the character, and I think it looks really good, and that Taika did make the right decision design-wise. At number 3, I would actually put the Ravager Thor, as mine had a few little quality hiccups, because it really is a strong figure and one that I could see people kind of picking over the main heroic Thor figure, just because he's a little more familiar, and I think that costume is going to resonate with a lot of people. For me, he's very strong, but some of those quality issues did hold things back. At number 2, I would place the new kind of heroic armor Thor. Love it or hate it with Thor's new design. There's something to be said for the dynamism of all of those great bright colors all working together. The gold, the mask, it's just the most extreme version of Thor's armor that we've seen so far, and it's just a real pleasure to see realized in action figure form. And finally, at number 1, I would actually have to go with the Jane Foster Thor figure. Color me as surprised as you may be hearing that, but the likeness, the articulation, the paint applications, sculpt, everything was just so right on with this figure that I was just entirely surprised by how cool it was, and especially how much it ended up looking like Natalie Portman. This one does a fantastic job, and since she is very comic book accurate, you could almost use the helmeted version just as a Mighty Thor for your comic book Marvel collection, and it would pretty well look accurate. So there's just a lot going for that figure, and I think it looks really, really great. Alright guys, well, I do thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. It really helps us out. And of course, you don't want to miss out on all the other Marvel Legends, He-Man, Batman, you name it, every other kind of review under the sun, maybe a few Lego things sprinkled in there, here and there. And of course, God bless you and yours, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.